Hello everyone, welcome to this full moon in Capricorn, which is reaching its peak today and tomorrow, and it's going to be exact on the 30th of June. Let me turn up this ventilation. Yeah, because there is a heat wave here, so it's very hot. So the moon is at 8:15 degrees of Capricorn, and the sun is at 8:15 degrees of Cancer. So now, before we begin, it's important to acknowledge the fact that these are somber times. This is not a full moon of wishful thinking or emotional escapism. We are now advised to look honestly at the structures, responsibilities, and commitments that shape our life. So as I'm going to show you now, because I'm going to share this screen, so please bear with me. I'm sharing the screen, so I'm doing it now. So you can see exactly what I'm talking about, it. Right, so now you are seeing my screen, and I'm going to highlight this full moon. It's in Capricorn, so we could take some black color. However, last time I used black already. So I'm going to use this nice. Okay, so this is where the full moon is at 8:15 degrees of Capricorn. Okay, and when is a full moon? The moon is always opposite the sun. As you can see, the sun is now here at 8:15 degrees of Cancer. And the main aspect of this full moon is the fact that the ruler of this full moon, which is Saturn, the moon is approaching to a square to Saturn. Okay, it's becoming exact. It's applying to Saturn. The moon is in Capricorn. Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, and now Saturn is squaring this full moon. Also, what we have to bear in mind is that the full moon is just separating from the square to Neptune, which is now at 4 degrees of Aries. Saturn is at 14 degrees of Aries. Okay, then what I will also talk about is the conjunction of Mars and Uranus in Gemini. Mars is at 0.51 of Gemini. Uranus is at 3 degrees 39 of Gemini. Okay. And there is also Mercury conjunct with Jupiter. Mercury is at 26 degrees 15 of Cancer, and Jupiter is at 29 degrees 57 of Cancer. Right, so this is what I'm going to talk about. The full moon is here in Capricorn. So like I said, the fact that Saturn in Aries at 14 degrees of Aries is aspecting this full moon with a square. This is adding an extra layer of seriousness, coldness, and harsh reality checks to this lunation. So like I said earlier about this being somber times, this is not a light-hearted full moon, isn't it? Because there is not much light-hearted about Capricorn and Saturn. So this is a full moon that asks us to face reality, to confront reality as it is. Whenever we experience a full moon, we arrive at a moment of revelation and heightened awareness. Full moon illuminates what has been developing beneath the surface, bringing matters into the light so that we can see them clearly. A full moon represents the end of a cycle. It is the culmination of a story. Something becomes obvious and clear now at a full moon. There can be a realization or even an ending. So bear with me 1 second because I just realized this is not how I wanted to share my screen. Let's carry on. I think that this is working. So yes, like I said, my lighting of this full moon is gone. That's fine. So this full moon is here. Okay, the sun is here. It's squaring. It's separating from Neptune. The full moon has already squared with Neptune, which I'm going to explain what this was supposed to be about. And now the full moon is applying, going towards Saturn. Okay, so, and then there is the conjunction of Mars and Uranus. And again, there is the conjunction of Mercury stationing retrograde in Cancer, conjunct with Jupiter. Jupiter is into a critical degrees at 29 of Cancer, is completing the cycle in the Cancer house of your chart. So there's a lesson that has been learned there. And that's good timing because Jupiter is ending this cycle of about a year in the sign of Cancer. And a full moon is also an ending, a completion. Okay, because Jupiter is about to go in Leo. So like I was saying earlier, in Capricorn, this process is grounded in reality because at this full moon, the sun is also not just the moon, the sun, most importantly, is separating from Neptune because the sun is at 8 degrees and Neptune is at 4 degrees. So they already had the square has already been exact, okay? And now the sun is going to square with Saturn. So applying to Saturn. So first of all, because of the separation with Neptune, this means that we have been confused, we have been unclear, idealistic, or even deceived about a situation. This situation, because the sun is in Cancer, this situation is about our home life or our emotional private life. Okay, it could be family life, Cancer theme, something related to your Cancer house in your chart. Then there has been some disappointment, there has been some, confusion. At worst, there has been some, you have been fooled with Neptune on the square, but however, now at this time, because we are going towards Saturn, reality is showing its ugly head. The fog is lifting. We are seeing something more clearly. We are realizing something that changes everything. And for some of us, that realization may lead to an ending. Okay, because now we have been deceived, we have been disappointed, or simply, at the least, we were not sure 100% about a person, a thing, a situation, but now it's crystal clear. Now we know what the deal is. And it's not what we thought it was. And because Saturn is about boundaries and limits, Saturn here at 14 degrees of Aries. So this can be a need now to put stronger boundaries in place with certain individuals or situations in our lives. Or it's about the need to say no and to reject what is intruding our privacy or making us feel emotionally unstable, isn't it? Because things were unclear, there was not enough boundaries. Maybe even if you have been fooled by someone, uh, I mean, if you didn't have enough clear boundaries and someone took advantage of you, now this full moon, there is no better energy than Saturn and Capricorn to make sure this won't happen again and to protect yourself by saying no, by putting clear boundaries in place. Is it because Neptune, Imogen, is like the ocean, it's like the wave of the sea coming onto the shore. And so Saturn is when we do a barrage. If you go to the beach or if there is a river with a lot of flow of energy, we have to put this gate to stop the water from coming. So this is how you can think about this. Maybe it's someone that you have because you were not sure and you have let someone maybe infuse their energy themselves too much into your life in your foundation, like water under the foundation of your house. And now you realize I have to stop this, otherwise I'm going to sink. Because Capricorn is the sign of self-discipline, long-term success, and mastery. So in Capricorn, we are reminded that meaningful achievements are built through patience, persistence, and dedication. Capricorn is also about learning to take responsibility for our actions, and it's about owning our own shit. Okay, with Saturn and Capricorn, we can't do what we like to do in Cancer and say, like you just like go and hide with your mommy and stuff like that. You have to be responsible like an adult, isn't it, in Capricorn, and you just are being, accountable for the consequences of your action. There's no one else to blame, so that's why it's difficult because now we are like, what if this happens? Because it's my fault, isn't it? I have been immature about it, especially with the square with Neptune. We wanted to believe in the fairy tale. We wanted to believe in our inspiration, into our dream. But when there is a square, the dream is going to lead to some disappointment. And this is what just happened to all of us. Now we are looking at Saturn and we understand why this happened. Why this dream wasn't real. It's not manifested into reality. However, now we have to do this work on ourselves, or we have to put these boundaries in place with other people. But yeah, the good thing is Capricorn is patient. Capricorn is realistic, well-grounded in the physical world, in reality. So it understands that life requires effort, and that meaningful results take time. If you want something good to happen in life, it takes time. That's why there is this expression when we say it's too good to be true. Like if it's too easy, then it's too good to be true. Most of the time, anything worth having requires some effort, isn't it? So it doesn't mean you have to work too hard and kill yourself working 40 hours per week, but you have to actually do something because often if we get something too easily, we take it for granted or it doesn't satisfy us, isn't it? That's why even if you think of any people who just have so much money, for example, and so much time, they like to keep working. They like to feel their life as a purpose. You know, you have to have a reason to wake up in the morning. It's good to have, even when we take holiday from work or if we lose our job and then we don't work for 1 month, 2 months, really after 3 months, isn't it? You just want to do something just like, oh, now I'm bored with life. You know, so we do have to put work into something, but it doesn't have to be drudgery work, isn't it? So the point is that if we work doing something that we love to do, then we could be working all day, every day, and then it doesn't actually feel like work. Do you know what I mean? In the contrary, you will be energized if you do a work that you like to do. What I have also noticed at this full moon is that, yeah, so the moon and the sun are both at 8 degrees. So a side note, and Saturn is at 14 degrees. Okay, so the number 8 is traditionally associated with Scorpio themes, while the number 14 is linked to the sign of Taurus. Um, so that can give you an extra hint of what this is about specifically for you at this full moon. Because again, if you don't know in which house this applies to, I will do the 12 sign briefly at the end of this video. But if you don't know, you know, you can get your birth chart from my website in the link below this video, and I will send it to you. I'm happy to help. I will send it to you for free. Or if you want a reading to know exactly specifically how this full moon or any upcoming full moon will apply to you, and anything else, you can always email me or you can just contact me. However, for now, I hope that these themes I'm going to mention, will help you, enlighten you, and suddenly you can be like, oh, I know now what this is about for me, isn't it? Because if you don't know much about astrology, then it can be difficult to like pinpoint exactly how this manifests for you. So think about the number 8 and the theme, because the moon is in 8 of Capricorn and the sun is at 8 of Cancer. The number 8, I just said, is linked to Scorpio. And so these are the keywords. So 8 equals to stuck emotions, taboo, shame or emotional paralysis, secrets, death, taxes, insurance, intensity, soul contract, taxes, debt over people's resources, jealousy, envy, loyalty, joint resources, borrowing, lending, real estate, trust, revenge, shame, grief, regret, therapy, intensity, investigation, control, power games, psychology, trauma, trust issues, and crisis. Okay. And then the number 14 to do with wealth, nature, food, and eating disorders, your talents, self-worth and self-esteem, luxuries, abundance, being slow and stubborn, being determined, indulgence of the senses, being possessive, your value systems, tangible possessions, to persevere, your self-esteem, your self-worth, your sense of how you feel secure, sensual pleasures, loyalty, the earth, patience, property, and expenses. So why I'm saying this, the point is that when we combine Capricorn, Cancer, and the placement of the moon and the placement of the sun and Saturn, which rules this full moon, then this means that over the next 2 weeks, our attention is also on matters of money, resources, values, and the value we place on our goals. This is so financial issues and issues of self-worth, they are linked to this event now at this full moon in Capricorn. Therefore, this is a good time to ask yourself if the sacrifices you are making are worth it. And are your ambitions truly aligned with what really matters to you? This full moon highly likely brings questions around success, reputation, responsibility, and emotional fulfillment. Have we been pursuing achievements because we really care about them, or because we need to feel financially secure? Have we been chasing status and public recognition because we really care about the path we walk in the world, or because we care too much of how we are publicly seen? And have we done all this sacrificing of our emotional well-being at the expense of what makes us feel emotionally secure, at the expense of our emotional needs? Right. These reality checks are necessary because the moon in Capricorn is in detriment. The moon prefers to be in Cancer the whole way on the opposite side. The moon is in its home sign in Cancer. Okay, so the moon is far from her home. She's across the country from her hometown, you can say. So yeah, in Capricorn, the moon feels as if she is in a foreign country. She does not naturally express emotions in Capricorn. Instead, she tends to repress feelings and put them on the back burner in order to focus on practical concerns like finances, status, responsibilities, and long-term success. Because the Capricorn moon energy seeks emotional security through achievement, competence, financial stability, and public recognition. She often needs some form of traditional and tangible accomplishment in order to feel safe. Okay, so, for example, someone with the moon in Capricorn, if you know anyone who has the moon in Capricorn, maybe you have the moon in Capricorn yourself, even Capricorn in general, you could tell them you've done all these things like, oh, I've traveled the world, I have all these spiritual practices that I do, I have all this knowledge, I take care of my body and I do all these sports. There's other things in life that have values. But really, but at the end of the day, the person with the moon in Capricorn, they just don't get it. For them, it's nice, but it's not good enough. They will only think that you have some kind of worth if you start talking about tangible thing and say, oh, I have this house, that I own this house, and you show them all your expensive jewelry. You tell them how much, a lot of money that you have a lot of money in your bank account. This is what Moon in Capricorn is. You just come back from a holiday and say, oh, I went to Africa and I saw all this. I went on safaris and I saw all these wild lions and tigers and stuff, or in the savannah, or like some wild stuff that you've done, all these people that you've met from all nationalities and stuff like that, or maybe you speak 10 languages. And so you come and you say that to this person with the moon in Capricorn, and they would just, they would, do you know what I mean? They were like, so as if what, so whatever, and instead they would just look at something of value that you wear. And they'll be like, oh, your jacket is nice. What designer is this? So that's all they seems to, because that's what makes them emotionally feel secure. So everyone is different. It's not about judging, it's just a fact. Therefore, it is time to deal with challenges with emotional control. Now, it's not time to be a Cancer, and to be wishy-washy and to say, oh, but I'm sensitive, I'm not feeling like this now. This is, I just want to stay home and just, check in with my feelings, and maybe later I will pay this bill, maybe later I will plan this trip. No, now with this full moon in Capricorn, the best way to make things work for your own benefit, the best way to whatever comes in your life, you have to deal with it with emotional control. You have to talk to people who challenge you as if you were a nice queen. You have to look serious, put your professional suit on. Yeah, because moodiness and childishness can only delay and aggravate a situation when Saturn and Capricorn are involved. And also with this energy, using the feelings, being emotional is just going to result in people taking more advantage of you. There are times in life when we just have to be cold and we have to be harsh and we have to be realistic. Because if we are just, even if we feel some feelings for some people, then they will, and if those people have Capricorn moon, they will take advantage of us because they won't be swayed by feelings. See what I mean? So, because every full moon occurs opposite the sun. Also, we have to remind ourselves that this lunation highlights the axis of Capricorn and Cancer. And that while Capricorn governs our public life, ambition, and social standing, Cancer rules our emotional life, our emotional needs, our home life, our family, and our sense of belonging. Our sense of belonging, because now, the world change, everything progress and change, especially since we can travel so easily to one side of the world to the other side of the world, and love people like myself. Maybe like some of you live far away from their families. Some people, like myself, they are not in contact with any of their families. Like me, for example, I speak to my cousin, some kind of speak to my grandmother, but for some personal reason that don't speak to anyone else. I mean, it's not funny, but it's just to say, because we have to see of all the possibility and all the people, that don't have family as the traditional way of families. It doesn't mean that some of my friends for me, for example, they are like my family. Like I had some friends that I have for 20 years and I rely on them like my family for Christmas, stuff like that. So I just want to highlight that when I talk about Cancer and I talk about our family, we have to open our mind to how culture has evolved, and family, it can be over kind of set up, of what your family means for you. So this is to include as well. Whoever you, in your heart, you feel is your family, then this applies to this situation. When I say family, when I say Cancer, and our sense of belonging. The challenge and opportunity of this full moon is to find a healthier balance between these two worlds of Cancer and Capricorn. Uh, so to understand this full moon, we have to understand Capricorn moon. And Capricorn moon often transforms emotions into concrete decisions and long-term commitments. They are emotionally invested in what lasts over the long time. And they take their duties seriously. And they often feel a strong responsibility for their family members, for their partners, friendships, and commitments. Sometimes this can be a strength, and sometimes this can be a burden. Because Capricorn moon, they remain loyal to relationships long after those relationships have stopped serving a positive purpose. Sometimes they feel indebted to people who help them climb the ladder of success in the past. Sometimes they simply feel obligated to maintain connections because responsibility matters more than personal feelings to them. They can also keep people in their life in case they need to use them in the future. And this is why, if you are a student of astrology, you have come across this famous keyword about Capricorn, which is I use. So we always think of the sign of Capricorn with I use. So this says a lot in itself. Capricorn moon individuals are frequently the CEOs of their own lives. They like order, they like to be in control. They like structure. They want their own life organized, their finance secure, and their future mapped out. They instinctively know how to compartmentalize their life. They will see you when you are on their schedule. But then when they see you, they'll give 100% of their attention to you. But in between, they do something else and they don't want to be disturbed by you. That doesn't mean they don't care about you. It's just that they just compartmentalize. Like when you run a business, that's how they would run their personal life. However, behind their controlled exterior, they can be very emotionally sensitive. So that does not mean that Capricorn moon does not have feelings. They have feelings. However, they just don't show it, in public. If you are intimate with them, you probably will see them cry sometimes, but they're certainly not going to show it easily like this. And they feel melancholic and they do cry in solitude at night. Capricorn moon people, they struggle to openly show affection. They don't feel comfortable expressing love verbally or physically. Nonetheless, they like to receive affections and cuddles from others. They won't ask for it, they won't admit it, but they actually like it. They can be productive and highly active during the day, but they become reflective, moody, or even withdrawn during quiet evenings. They like to spend time alone in the evenings. And that's how they, process their feelings. Late at night. The challenge is that suppressed emotions do not disappear. Often under the surface, what is repressed accumulates. And Capricorn moon feel pressured to conform to society's expectations and to parental conditioning or the consensus. They like to carry on, what their parents did. So if their parents had children, some of them, not all of them, but some of them, maybe they don't want children, but they might go and have a child because they think that it's their duty, to carry on the family name, for example. So that's why rather than expressing their authentic feelings, they may suppress them in order to appear competent, responsible, and socially acceptable. So therefore, this full moon asks us to be honest about what we truly feel and about the reality of our emotional needs. Maybe what emotionally satisfies us is an alternative way of life. Now it becomes obvious to us where we have been unfulfilled because we tried to fit others' expectations for our lives. Okay, so this is what I had to explain about this full moon in Capricorn and Capricorn itself. So now let's look at the aspect, because like I said, Saturn, the full moon is applying to square Saturn. And Saturn, which rules the sign of Capricorn. So, it adds an extra layer of, tension and seriousness to this lunation, because Saturn represents limits and unavoidable truths. Saturn is about delay, time, patience, obstacles, duties, and the slow process of building solid foundations. Saturn is like a hard teacher, but Saturn wants our good. Saturn, I believe, wants to protect us. Saturn forces us to do the homework, and we have to do the homework, isn't it? If we want to, let's say, graduate in life. Because, Jupiter, everyone is always saying all these nice things with Jupiter. But without discipline, we will hurt ourselves. Isn't it? Because if someone is 14, if your child is 14 or 15, I don't know, you know what I mean, 13, and you just let them have all this alcohol, that's what Jupiter would do, isn't it? And all this junk food, and do nothing with their life, maybe sleep every day until 2 p.m., and you just give them everything that they want. Well, they're happy, but you need to be the adult. You need to say no, isn't it? You can't just do what they want because they are just a teenager or a child. So that's what Jupiter would do. Be like, oh yes, let's be generous. You want this, take all this, isn't it? And then you buy 16 years old a sport car that goes too fast, and then they have a tragic accident, which happened to two of my friends actually, isn't it? When they were 18, their parents bought them a sport car. Yeah, and they went too fast, and but two of them, they sadly been disabled for life, and they could have died from it. So that's a example of what Jupiter can do, and if you had a parent that is like Saturn, like myself, they'll be like, well, you want a motorbike, you just get a summer job and you buy your motorbike with your savings. That's what I've done, isn't it? I wanted a motorbike and I worked the summer and I got a motorbike when I was 14. And then my mom paid half of it. You know what I mean? But then you're grateful because I didn't have a car accident. And then, I learned the value of the things that I have. So obviously we need a balance because sometimes it's nice to also get something for free without working. So if you have too much Saturn, you might not get, anything easily either. So we have to have a bit of Saturn, a bit of Jupiter, ideally in our charts. However, the point now is that Saturn is a teacher that wants us to grow up and he wants us to become responsible adults. There is a situation in our life where we need to put some boundaries in place and we have to exert more self-control to avoid hurting ourselves or being hurt. Right. However, Saturn's help is not as strong as it could be because Saturn is currently in the sign of Aries. There's a lot of flights here. So the sign of Aries is the sign of impulse. It's the instinct. You know, it's like the child that says, I want this now. Give it to me now. It's what Aries is like. It's the desire to act immediately. Aries wants action now, and Saturn wants patience. Aries wants freedom, and Saturn wants accountability. So this means that, you know, that's why we say Saturn is at fall in Aries, because Saturn is exalted in the opposite side, in Libra, where Saturn is strong. So it is, at fall in Aries, it cannot put boundaries in the most, let's say, productive way. When Saturn is in Aries, there is a conflict of interest, and we need to reconcile the impulse to act quickly for instant gratification versus the necessity for a stable long-term plan. If we go too fast, we may hit our head against the wall with Saturn in Aries. So this creates a tension. We are feeling stretched between our desire to move forward quickly and the reality that some situations require more time, more discipline, and more maturity. Okay, so the square Saturn is squared to this full moon. There is a square aspect. People with a lot of square in their birth chart often are more successful in life, isn't it? So a square is not necessarily negative. Like I explained before, sometimes things being hard for you actually works better for you in the long term. Because squares force us to act. If we don't act, then we are stuck and then we will self-destruct or we will cause harm to others. So squares are good to be motivated to take action because squares give you the energy to achieve the impossible. They strengthen your character and increase your willpower. Often people with a lot of trines that are easy. You know, when you got trine, it's literally that thing is falling on your lap. So yeah, people with a lot of trines and sextiles, they take what they have for granted. And so even if they have a lot of potential to easily achieve things in life, they can get lazy or just settle for the status quo because they are not triggered enough by life. Right, so like I explained before, you know, if it's too easy, then why would you bother doing anything? And then side note, a lot of people we can think of when that we know that they have so much things that are coming easy to them, isn't it? Then, you know, sadly, sometimes they fall into addictions, isn't it? Or they just sit there and spend all their money and they don't achieve anything really specific, isn't it? Because they were lacking a bit of anger, a bit of desire, you know, the drive. The square gives you this drive, like I have to do something. Oh, I'm so triggered. Oh, I need to wake up and do this. You know that feeling. I need to go there and get this, or else I'm going to die, you know. So a square, you know, can be also like a blind spot that we need to acknowledge. And since the outer planet in a square always wins, the slower planet in a square always wins. So if you've got a square, look at which is the slower planet, which is the outer planet, and then, you know, focus on this planet the most. For example, if it's Saturn, like now, let's say if you've got Mars square Saturn, you have to slow down. Doesn't matter. You want this thing now. You just get hurt yourself. You just have to accept that it's gonna take a long time to come. Yeah, since the outer planet in a square always wins, then better stick on the Saturn side now, because it's Saturn, the slower planet. And proceed with caution and have a concrete strategy over time, rather than take a leap of faith. This is not time for a leap of faith. Because yes, this full moon is applying a square to Saturn. This is also the end, the delay, or the last of something that we used to get to fulfill our need to work towards some kind of status or material stability. As if Saturn is saying no more. You have to make a sacrifice. You have to work harder, or you have maybe to pay more, to invest more of yourself to get a specific need fulfilled. There's not gonna be any free lunch anymore about this situation. You must emotionally grow up and face reality as to your deficiencies. Okay, because Saturn is in Aries, and with Saturn in Aries, the lessons and the challenge is to discipline and control or resist the impulse to engage in aggressive and impulsive acts. There can be long-term and serious consequences to any immature actions. Saturn asks us in Aries to think before rushing, and this is frustrating because Aries is a primitive, reckless, and childish sign. With Saturn in Aries, the impulse to act, the impulse to anger is blocked, is restricted. And things that we would normally do without thinking, we can't let them loose right now. So these can help us keep the peace, or it can cause some eruptions born out of frustrations. However, this full moon is in Capricorn, so this is because Saturn in Aries is not, that's why it's not ideal, because it will just do some discipline for today, but it will not really think of if I do this discipline today, what is the consequences of it in 5 years or more. So with the fact that this full moon is in Capricorn, it's helping us, to be realistic as to what we have to be serious about right now, that is also going to serve us in the future. For example, let's say if someone has children and they will just beat their children up too much, you know what I mean? That's not how we're supposed to, that's not good parenting, isn't it? Because, not only I think no one should beat their children up, but if you were to do this, what will happen when your child is now 16 or is 18? They will leave your house. They will stop talking to you, isn't it? They might hate on you. They'll be like, oh, you beat me up. I was innocent. I was just a small child. I was helpless, isn't it? And you should have kept me safe, but you hurted me. And now the child will walk away from you and will never speak to you again. And even if they speak to you again, they will have a lot of issues and all this. You know what I mean? So a parent with Saturn in Aries, isn't it? It's not ideal, because that's what they could do. Well, for today, I will slap you. For tomorrow, I will slap you, without thinking in the long term what are going to be the consequences of it. So with Capricorn, we have the wisdom, at least, to think I'm not going to be this type of abusive parent. because in 20 years there will be consequences. So let me work out a better productive plan of how I'm going to discipline my child, isn't it? Without hurting them. So that then later in 20 years, they will thank me for the education and the discipline I have inflicted upon them. Okay, so then I will now move on to Mars in Gemini, who is conjunct with Uranus in Gemini, which I have highlighted in red. So this conjunction is about 3 degrees, and so it's a conjunction, and also it's going to become exact soon after this full moon. And yes, we could be curious and look, when will this actually become exact? Because it doesn't take long. And so on the 4th of July, this Mars and Uranus conjunction is going to be exact. So count to 10 and do not do any impulsive actions or verbally, say anything that could hurt other people, because it could blow up out of proportion. However, now I'm talking about this Mars and Uranus conjunction in Gemini at this full moon, because this is part, the whole picture is part of the full moon. So this is adding another layer to this story. Okay, because Saturn is in Aries, and so Mars rules Aries. So Saturn is ruled by Mars in Gemini. Mars, which has recently entered Gemini, as you can see, is just at the beginning, is at 0 degrees of Gemini. And yeah, it is about to conjunct Uranus, like I just showed you. And even if Mars and Uranus are not directly aspecting the full moon itself, they form an important part of the background story. Yeah, because Mars is ruling Saturn, and also Mars is ruling Neptune also. Neptune is in Aries. And it's also worth noting that there is another conjunction, because Mercury is in, so Mercury rules Gemini. So Mars rules Saturn and Neptune, and then Mercury rules Gemini. So Mercury is ruling Mars and Uranus. Okay. And Mercury is in mutual reception with Mars, but what we can call triplicity in traditional astrology. And like I said before, when there is 2 planets that are in mutual receptions, either by sign or triplicity, then it has, the connection counts nearly as much as the actual aspect. Okay, so long story short, Mars and Mercury are also talking to each other at this full moon. They are connected, they see each other. And also, Mars and Jupiter are also linked by you see in my table here, there is a parallel. They are in parallel, so they see each other. Mars in Gemini and Jupiter in Cancer. So all these planets that I have highlighted in red and yellow, they talk to each other. They work together. They are all part of the story. And this is why I'm talking about it. So Mars and Uranus in Gemini can be about sudden events triggered by a communication. A message, it's about transport, travel, paperwork, technology, neighbors, siblings, and information exchange. So with Mars and Uranus in Gemini, communication at this time can be abrupt. News can arrive unexpectedly. Travel plans can change suddenly. Conversation can become confrontational and disruptive. Gemini is quick and Uranus is unpredictable. Anything could happen. Any truth could be let loose because Mars and Uranus are ruled by Mercury. And let's not forget that Mercury, you see there is a small r excess. Mercury is stationing retrograde. So Mercury at this full moon, you see, is minus 0.01. Is not moving at this full moon. So when a planet is stationed and retrograde on top of it, it's strongly felt. And when there is a retrograde, especially with Mercury, we know that it's not a big deal because it happens so many times a year. However, the time when the planet is stationed and a day before, a day after, you know, the time of the transition from one direction to another, this is when we feel the retrograde Mercury the most. You know, once Mercury is already retrograde and is carry on retrograding back, then really there is not that much miscommunication anymore. It's the time now when it's stationed, when it just retrogrades. You know, when there is the most communication mix up. Yeah, so Mercury is stationing retrograde. On the day of this full moon, we have done a U-turn on how to proceed with a specific matter at this time. Or because of some shocking news and realization, some agreements are delayed or they are put on hold. There can be some changes of plan, travel disruptions, unexpected conversations, unexpected ideas, you know, unexpected decisions. Suddenly you're like, you know what, I'm going to do this out of the box thing that, you know, I never thought I was going to take this action. And now you're like, you know what, this is what I'm going to do. Something a bit eccentric. Something that is going to solve your problem in a way that you never thought you were going to do it. And now you're like, you know what, I'm going to do it because you with Mars, you're a bit triggered, you're a bit irritated, and you're like, you know what, I'm gonna do this. And yeah, so you are changing your mind. Yeah. So whatever is discussed now, whatever is decided now, whatever information we think that we have now, we think that we know now, will require some revision. It's going to be reviewed later on. You know, the story is not yet finished. All the information has not yet come into place. There could be a reversal when Mercury goes direct. So this is happening in Gemini and Cancer. So most likely it has to do with our emotional and private life, with our well-being and health, real estate and self-nurturing issues. Some extra information came to our attention and it changes our plans because an adjustment needs to be done to satisfy our emotional needs and also to stabilize our finances and to protect our assets. Because we are talking of Mars and Uranus, this news, like I said, can come in a shocking and mentally cutting ways. But nonetheless, it is freeing and it brings clarity. And then lastly, I have highlighted Mercury at 26 degrees of Cancer. and Jupiter at 29 degrees of Cancer. So because Mercury and Jupiter are conjunct, yes, Mercury is going to go in the other direction, and so this conjunction is not yet going to be exact. This conjunction is going to be exact later on at 6 degrees of Leo. That's where Mercury and Jupiter will actually meet. But now they are conjunct because they are 3 degrees away from each other. So what did so this means that this information is blown up out of proportion because Mercury is conjunct Jupiter in Cancer. Mercury conjunct Jupiter often brings huge ideas, confident opinions, big announcements, important conversations, negotiations, and future-oriented thinking. Sometimes it can also exaggerate situations or cause us to overlook important details because we focus mostly on the good side of people and of situations. When Jupiter is involved, we can feel invincible, and we think we're going to take all these shortcuts and it's all going to work out for the best. So we have to be careful. However, yes, whatever information has come to our attention now with Jupiter, when I said it can be, the information is blown out of proportion because Jupiter is in Cancer, isn't it? So whatever this information is, our emotional state, the amount of emotions that we feel regarding this information, cannot be denied. Because there's a lot of emotion. And that's why we cannot avoid it anymore. This shocking realization. Yeah, and Mercury is about to move backward. Therefore, whatever communication comes up at this full moon may not be final. This situation is going to continue to develop during the retrograde period of Mercury, which is until the 25th of July, when Mercury will turn direct. And also we will have more clarity when Mercury and Jupiter meet again in Leo during August. Like I said, at 6 degrees of Leo. So look in your chart if you have anything at 6 degrees of Leo. That will impact you most. Finally, we have Jupiter entering into Leo roughly on the day of this full moon, isn't it? On the 30th of June. So on the day of this full moon. And this is a significant shift. After all the seriousness, limitation, and responsibilities, after all the reality checks of Saturn and Capricorn. Thankfully, like I said before, it's good because we have some Jupiter to balance. Jupiter entering Leo brings a very different and a more uplifting energy. Although Jupiter won't be exalted anymore in Leo like it was in Cancer, Jupiter is still strong in Leo, a fellow fire sign, because Leo trines Sagittarius. Sagittarius is the home sign of Jupiter. It's ruled by Jupiter. Therefore, this means that this is a Jupiter in Leo is a boost of optimism, is a boost of self-confidence. For anyone that's an Aries, a Leo, a Sagittarius, in this house of your chart, if you've got any planets there, if you've got any point, if you've got your ascendant, if you've got your midheaven, your IC, your descendant, then look forward to it. You'll have more courage, you'll feel more creative. Leo is about being authentic, you know, taking the lead. It's about leadership. Most importantly, Leo is about connecting to our heart, isn't it? It's about what brings us joy, what makes us happy. And the warning with Jupiter in Leo is to watch our egos, you know, especially, yeah, that can be the downside. People who are already egoistical, you know, they just have to watch out because, yeah, that's the downside of Jupiter in Leo. Those who already have excessively a strong ego, they will be even more focused on pride, on recognition, on status, you know, and that can be self-destructive because it's not really nice to look at someone that's egoistical, but also we can hurt ourselves, you know, if we are egoistical. Because, you know, so it's good to check yourself and be a bit humble, you know, and the fixed star, Regulus star is at 29 something of Leo. You know, have to keep in mind, he's moved into Virgo now. It's at 0 degrees of Virgo, Regulus actually. So this is a sign that in the times we live in, being a queen or being a king requires being humble. And it's no more about me, me, me. And also the North Node is about to go in Aquarius. And the South Node, therefore, is going to be in Leo. Another clue that in the times to come, a true leader, a true royalty, you know, is about acting for other, acting for a bigger purpose, you know, shining with other people, not just think of our own self. Yeah, so those of us who are wise now have the opportunity to develop a greater self-confidence. You know, this is good for you if you are not confident, if you are shy, there's something you wanted to do for a long time and you didn't have the courage, then Jupiter in Leo is going to be on your side. It's about creativity, generosity, and an authentic self-expression. Most importantly, the sign of Leo wants to have fun in expressing its true self. This full moon may bring endings, realizations, and reality checks triggered by the fact that Jupiter is squaring Chiron. Chiron has just entered Taurus because you can see Chiron is at 0 degrees 20 of Taurus. So, because I need to plug my laptop. Uh, yeah. So, what does it mean that whatever shocking message we received at this time, this has to do with a wounding to our self-esteem or a wounding Chiron, a rejection to what we value. With Jupiter, this can also have expanded financial hardship and issues to do with our bodies. Okay, because I'm not expanding in this video about Chiron in Taurus, but this is to do with, you know, where we feel rejection or where we feel some kind of pain that is either related to our bodies or to our finances, to our self-worth. Or it can also be related to nature and the earth. So now with Chiron in Taurus, you know, we might realize that, you know, the financial lifestyle that we have been living, for example, for some people, you know, they might have less money now, isn't it? And they might need to be more minimalistic, you know, to embrace nature more, to be more natural in how they treat their bodies, to use less cosmetic, less surgeries, you know, and plastic and all that. Because Taurus is about being natural, you know, natural beauty. True beauty is natural beauty. And also it's healthier to be natural beauty, isn't it? Because if you go and inject all this plastic in your face, surely, I mean, can't be good for you, can it? So, uh, yeah, the point is Jupiter entering Leo reminds us that a new chapter is also beginning. And with Capricorn and Saturn, if we are willing to do the work, we will see results. So stay optimistic. So one of the reasons I believe this full moon feels so significant is that it is taking place against the backdrop of Pluto at 4, now Pluto is at 4 degrees 54 of Aquarius, isn't it? So this full moon is taking place against the backdrop of Pluto transit in Aquarius. As you can see, Mars and Uranus are trining with Pluto. Okay, so Pluto is about transformation, power, shadow material. So, yeah, sorry, I'm having things in the air floating. Yeah, Pluto is about obsessions, hidden motivations, addictions, renewal. You know, Pluto says change or die, transform or die. Not obviously die, you know, something in your life, you know, might go away. A part of yourself, a part of your psyche might go away, you know, this kind of change or die. Pluto is about destruction, rebirth, self-empowerment, facing the ugly truth. So many things, what we call the shadow, you know. Pluto exposes what was hidden. It reveals shady and secret stuff that is beneath the surface of people, of institutions, and beneath the surface of societies. And Pluto in Capricorn is revealing the secrets and shady stuff that happens in groups of people, in friendships, groups of friends as well, for example. Right? And Aquarius has to do with the collective, with communities, social networks, technology, and humanity's future. So with Pluto through in Aquarius, we are now witnessing a profound transformation of society itself. We are seeing battles over information, truth, technology, freedom, and control. At the same time, Mars in Gemini with Uranus. This is Mars is about action, conflict, assertion, and desire. And Uranus is about disruption, awakening, rebellion, shocks, and surprises. These are in Gemini. And in Gemini, we think of the communication, the media, information exchange, transport, learning, teaching, any exchange of ID type situations. So altogether, Mars and Uranus in Gemini, linked with this Pluto in Aquarius. This can manifest as sudden revelations, shocking news, information warfare, communication breakdowns, ideological battles, and a rapid spread of ideas. Because this conjunction is in harmony with this trine to Pluto. As you can see, Mars and Uranus, there's a green line on my software going to Pluto. This in harmony with Pluto. So these are themes that are amplified and accelerated collectively. And this means that now we see truth emerge unexpectedly. Hidden agendas may become more visible. Information that was previously suppressed may suddenly come to light. At the same time, misinformation and manipulation can also spread rapidly. That can be some malicious information that spreads rapidly, because when there is a trine, it's not always given that it's positive when it's a trine to some what we call malefic planet, like Pluto and Mars. Something comes easily, but is it a good thing that comes easily? Right. So yeah, like I said, hidden agendas are now more visible, and the information that was suppressed is now coming to light. Misinformation and manipulation is easily seen. And this is why we have to exert our discernment at this time. We have to think for ourselves. We have to check the data. We have to look at the facts. Especially, we already got this disappointed, we already got disillusioned with Neptune. So, from my own spiritual perspective, I see this period as a battle for consciousness, not necessarily a battle between political groups, but a battle between fear and awareness, between unconscious behavior and conscious choice. Pluto has always been associated with confronting the shadow. In psychological astrology, the shadow represents the part of ourselves that we deny, repress, and project onto others, or the part of ourselves that we refuse to acknowledge. However, during a Pluto transit, these shadow elements often surface so they can be transformed. In my experience, people who refuse to confront their shadow can become consumed by resentment, hatred, obsessions, greed, envy, or the desire to dominate others. While some other people with more wisdom use the Pluto transit as an opportunity for profound self-questioning, for self-empowerment, and self-transformation. Because when I speak of spiritual warfare, I am referring to the struggle between unconscious destructive tendencies and higher awareness. Each person ultimately has a choice regarding which path they will follow. Will you be seduced by the darkness, or will you follow the light? Because the darkness can seduce you, with easy wealth, with beauty, with things. As with the light, it takes more time to acquire those things, those material things. And most importantly, the light teaches us about inner wealth and to have the wealth of knowledge. Because we have to think in the afterlife, what are you going to take with you? And really, do we want to come back into another life and have another set of issues? So surely, if we follow the light, there's more chances that we will come across the information that we need to come across so that we can evolve in this life and beyond. So before I get to the 12 signs, We can highlight the fact that this full moon in Capricorn reminds us that we are responsible for our choices. Capricorn teaches us accountability, and Saturn teaches consequences. Pluto teaches transformation. The question is not whether change is coming. Change is already here. The question is whether we participate consciously in this transformation or whether we resist it. However, with Pluto and Saturn, resistance is futile. Also, as like I said, Jupiter is now entering Leo. We are encouraged to reconnect with our courage, with our authentic self, to be more playful and more creative by connected to the wisdom of our heart. Because when we lack creativity, when we are stuck and we just don't feel like doing something and it feels so industrious, and we're like, oh, I have to do this thing, but I just don't feel like it. You know, to embrace our playful self and to do what our heart feels like doing, it always ignites something within. And then suddenly the inspiration comes when we follow the heart, when we do what we authentically want to do. When we don't do something for others, we feel alive. This is what is the wisdom of the heart. And we should have more of this now with Jupiter in Leo, which is something to look forward to. The antidote to fear is not more fear. The antidote is more self-awareness, greater integrity, and a stronger connection to our inner truth. So the universe at this full moon is advising us to stay grounded, to stay discerning, to question what we are told, to question our own assumptions, and also to stay connected to your values and to stay connected to your inner guidance. You know, because the answer is always within, not someone outside ourselves. We have the answer within if we only take the time to tune in to our higher self, who is always there for us if we take time, you know, to ask for guidance. The more aligned you are with your authentic self, the less vulnerable you become to external manipulation, fear, and confusion. Because this is what the dark energy in this world wants to do. They want us to be confused so that we take the wrong path, so that we lose ourselves, distracted and seduced by all these shiny objects. Isn't it? But now at this full moon in Capricorn, we have to balance both the material, the desire for the material things that we want, but also we have to take care of the wealth within ourselves, the wealth of emotions and the wealth of knowledge and the wealth of the spiritual connections with nature and with our higher self, who is there to guide us and who has all the answers we seek. So this is what the most important lesson is at this full moon in Capricorn. The conclusion is that this full moon is the conclusion of a goal that we pursued for a long time. Probably a goal that we pursued for many years. Now we have a sudden, abrupt, and mentally cutting information that brings clarity and understanding to an old mystery in our lives. Because of this unexpected action that happened, because the unexpected data, information, realization that came to us, we are completing a chapter of our life which is not worth pursuing anymore. as it cannot bring us emotional satisfaction. So now I'm going to do the 12 sign as to conclude this video. So 1 second, I'm going to do the 12 sign. I'm going to start by Aries. Listen for your ascendant first, and then for your sun sign. If you don't know any of it, if you would like to know more about your birth chart, if you want me to answer a question for you, to a solar return chart, or to read your chart, to do a chart reading for anything, you can contact me via the links below this video, or you can also email me and ask me any questions. Go on my website and please check my services, and I'll be happy to assist you. So for now, how this full moon is going to affect you for your sign. Okay, so this is more potent for today up to the next 2 weeks. Okay, so for the sign of Aries, the spotlight is on your career, achievement, ambitions, and life directions. As a goal you have been working towards since the Capricorn new moon in January is now coming to fruition. Recognition may arrive, but so does responsibility. Ask yourself, Aries, what emotional truth about your path is ready to be seen? And what support do you need to make your dream a reality? For you, Taurus, the horizons are opening up before you as your world grows larger through learning, travel, spirituality, or blazing your own trail. Because this, for you, Taurus, is in your 9th house. You are being asked to release old assumptions, to trust a bigger vision, and to stay curious as your beliefs continue to evolve. For you, dear Gemini, this full moon is in your 8th house. So this puts a spotlight on your inner world, on your karmic contract, on your shared resources with other people, on your deep emotions. This is bringing a transformation where secrets, fears, and old ones are ready to be released. Something is ending, so something healthier can begin for you, Gemini. So trust your emotional depths and let those feelings flow. For you, my dear Cancer, this full moon is in your 7th house of relationship. This house of your chart is illuminated now and is bringing up partnerships, friendships, and your important connections into focus. You are now, Cancer, being asked to balance your own needs with those of others, making room for honesty, maturity, and relationships that truly support your growth. For you, Cancer, this is in your 6th house of how you function, of your daily life, systems in place, your work, your health, maybe your pets. Overall, your daily routines deserve careful attention at this full moon, which reminds you that rest is the foundation of a lasting success, Leo. Small disciplines now produce enormous results later on. So make your well-being the priority instead of burning the candle at both hands. And for you, Virgo, this full moon is happening in your 5th house. So that means that your creativity is now blossoming, because this full moon is highlighting your 5th house of romance, of joy, of children, of self-expression. So Virgo, you're advised to follow your passion wherever it leads you, to allow yourself permission to play, and remember that your joy is not frivolous. It is essential. For you, Libra, this full moon is in your fourth house of your family, your home life, your roots, and your emotional security. And this now becomes impossible to ignore at this time. The foundation of your life, Libra, is being illuminated. So look to what truly makes you feel safe. Release what no longer belongs. And remember that healing your emotional roots is essential to building the life that you want, Libra. As for you, Scorpio, this full moon is in your third house. So at this full moon, your voice carries some power as conversations, learning, writing, and communication is coming into a sharp focus. Speak your truth, Scorpio, with confidence, because profound change begins when you stop waiting for the perfect words and allow yourself to be heard. Now, for you, Sagittarius, this full moon is in your second house of your money, of your income, of your self-worth, of your finances. This full moon for you, Sagittarius, is about your values, is putting the spotlight on your self-worth and on your finances. You are invited to look beyond income and to ask what you truly value. A new opportunity may emerge now, but your greatest lesson is remembering that your worth is not measured by productivity or by anyone else's opinion of you. And for you, dear Capricorn, you are the star of this full moon. This full moon is in your first house of your sense of self, of your identity. It's highlighting your personal growth and your accomplishment. This is your annual moment of culmination. This is a time, Capricorn, to celebrate how far you have come. Release what no longer, release what you no longer are. Release an old part of yourself and stand confidently in your evolution. For Aquarius, this full moon is in your 12th house of what you do behind the scene, what you do in private. This is also your 12th house of spirituality and the subconscious. Your subconscious is now, Aquarius is now illuminated. You are encouraged at this time to rest, to retreat, to heal, and to connect to a deeper connection with your intuition. Sometimes your greatest progress happens behind the scenes, and the healing begins when you are willing to face what has been hidden, Aquarius. That could also be highlighting, for some of you, a mental illness, and that's a good time to work on it and to admit it to yourself at this time. Pisces, this full moon is in your 11th house of networking, community, and friendship. And so at this time, your long-term wishes and goals and dreams are highlighted, Pisces. This is bringing opportunities for you to connect with people who support you on your life path. The people around you may become the bridge to your next opportunity, especially when you stop hiding your authentic self and when you share your unique gift with others. So thank you for watching my video. I'm very grateful if you stay to the end. I hope that you got something interesting. I hope that you get something, most importantly, useful from this video. And if you need any of my services, check the link below this description, send me an email. And yes, I was happy to do this video today. I really enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed it too. And then I will see you next time for the next video. And until then, Take care and bye for now.